Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Honestly, I don't know where to begin. I'm still very much on the run from those people who are hunting me, no thanks to freaking someone I can't name. But I'll be back at my usual location next week, just as soon as I fight the monsters that are following me. So since I'm in a tropical setting, I figured what better movie to review than a movie about a killer shark. No, not Jaws, something else. What do I mean? Well, let's get some history out of the way. Shark movies. Yeah, I don't know why we need so many of these. Since Jaws was a monster hit, it makes sense that movie studios wanted to cash in on the success of Steven Spielberg's classic, including Universal themselves, who made 3 sequels from 1978 to 1987, all of which range from halfway decent to downright awful. As far as other studios go, there are so many of these, and most of them are absolute trash. Stuff like The Meg, 47 Meters Down, and who can forget Sharknado? The worst part about these movies is that they all got sequels somehow. Why on earth do people watch these poorly made, obvious cash grabs of movies? To me, shark movies are the worst subgenre of movies because nothing is ever going to top Jaws. This is my Twilight, my Michael Bay Transformers, my 50 Shades of Grey, my Percy Jackson, my Divergent. Obviously crappy movies that people still watch. However, there was one decent shark film that came out after Jaws. This movie was released in the summer of 1999, the year that also featured big summer blockbusters such as The Mummy, The Matrix, and of course, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. The movie was directed by Finnish director Renny Harlin, whose only other movie I have seen is Die Hard 2, the less original and sometimes crappy sequel to a classic, so that's not exactly a good sign. Despite some critics giving the movie some flack for generally containing a ton of cliches and not generating big bucks, the movie does have a cult following and is generally regarded as one of the better shark movies. Do I think it's on par with Jaws? Oh god, no. I can't even make that comparison. But at least I think it has some stuff going for it. But why? I'm surprised I'm even here talking about this, but I'm excited anyway. This is Deep Blue Sea. On an island research facility, Dr. Susan McAllister, played by Saffron Burrows, is investigating and harvesting the brain tissue of DNA-altered sharks for a possible cure for Alzheimer's disease. One of the facility's backers sent an executive, played by Samuel L. Jackson, to investigate the experiments. A routine procedure goes awry, and the sharks start attacking the researchers. Now with the sharks outnumbering their human captors, McAllister, alongside shark tamer Carter, played by Tom Jane, as well as help from the chef of the boat, played by LL Cool J, must figure out a way to stop the sharks from escaping to the ocean and breathe. Strangely, while this is an inherent knockoff of Jaws and the big budget disaster movies in the 1990s by Universal, there's a lot to like about Deep Blue Sea. It's got a great tone, it's got memorable characters and lines, and most importantly, it's so much fun. I was having a blast while watching it. This has to be one of the most fun 90s movies I've ever seen, even if it has some glaring issues, which, believe me, I plan on addressing. So, let's talk a little more about this very strange movie and see what it's really like beneath the surface. Yeah, that was an intended pun, and even if it wasn't, I would have pointed it out anyways, so there. Now, I usually give movies like this flack for a lack of any decent characters, but to be completely real, I think that these guys are far more interesting than any of the Universal monster movie characters from the 30s. They were far more interesting and compelling than any of those characters by a long shot. I have to commend WB for doing this. So to start off, let's talk about Carter. Now, he's no Rick O'Connell, nor is he Kevin Costner from Waterworld, but he is memorable, and is a ton of fun to be around. I think the best aspect of his character is that he's a shark expert, and he himself has to help take out the sharks that threaten the facility around him. He's a pretty serviceable character otherwise, but I do think he was a ton of fun to be around for a movie like this. Now, as far as Susan goes, she's just okay. I understand what they were trying to do here with the question of morality storyline from Jurassic Park, but the execution left a lot to be desired. There's no real good motivation here for performing the experiment. It's just there. But it wasn't fleshed out well enough, and I needed to see more of her character to be attached to her. Also, her death scene didn't feel regardless of how desperately the movie wants you to care. That's unfortunate because the ingredients for a great character are here, but they aren't taken advantage of enough. It's very sad when you think about it. Russell Franklin was a decent character, but even Sam Jackson couldn't crack the code to make a memorable character. He's far more memorable than most of the crew, minus Carter, but he's also not really utilized well, especially when it comes to his pretty effective death scene, which only bothers me when I think about it. My favorite character in the movie was Preach. He constantly had the best jokes, the best one-liners, and yes, even the best moments in the movie, which include him cutting himself out of the oven with a fire axe and then lighting the shark on fire, filming a video of how to make the best omelet, and blinding the shark in one eye with a cross necklace. It also helps that LL Cool J is full of charisma both on and off set. So, there's that, I guess. Fun fact, while he cites this as a very fun experience, he also mentioned to me that he almost drowned while filming, which sounds pretty disturbing. Whatever the case may be, Preach is easily the highlight of the movie, and there's nothing that can change that. If they ever make a proper sequel to Deep Blue Sea, both Preach and Carter need to be in it, and not only is Carter a great alternative action hero, but Preach is the first black character to survive a monster movie, which is a feat. As far as other characters go, I don't know that there's much to say. I think Stellan Skarsgård's character is underutilized regardless of that pretty brutal kill scene. The other girl is just kind of there, and that's all I have to say. So my favorite two characters in the movie were easily Carter and Preach, while the others range from okay to generic, which I kind of expected, to be completely honest with you. Now, as far as the effects go, it is shockingly impressive how much water they used to fill up this set. They really went the extra mile to make this movie feel claustrophobic and unpredictable, and the entire environment being surrounded by water was a nice touch. I can also say that the animatronic sharks in this movie looked incredible. They look like actual sharks. They're not as impressive as the beast in Jaws, but they still look great. I also didn't bring up the sharks in the character section because they're not memorable enough, just to say that. I also think that the look of the environment is great too. You really feel like the movie is taking you to the open water, and it's very great to have this feeling. Now, despite all my praise for the practical effects, I have to say that the digital effects are terrible. For 1999, they look like N64 or PS1 graphics, and even those had some really great looking aspects. Also, it doesn't help that in 1997, Titanic revolutionized what CGI could really do, which was in part inspired by Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, Judgment Day in 1993 and 1991, respectively. I mean, just look at how bad these effects are. The worst part about them is that the filmmakers seemed proud of them, so they are held on for a very long period of time. This isn't the worst CGI I've ever seen, but it is still pretty terrible, and perhaps some of the worst I've seen in a hot minute. If it weren't for the recent MCU projects sucking so hard in regards to the effects. I'm looking at you, She-Hulk, and especially you, MODOK. No, I'm not going to stop making these jabs until Marvel gets their act together. As far as the music goes, I have to say the score actually fits in surprisingly well with the tone established for the movie. I was on the edge of my seat throughout most of the runtime, and that's honestly a good thing. It was an effective score for the movie that was made, but I don't think it will stick with me unless I rewatch the movie in its entirety more than once. Finally, we have the tone. Yeah, this tone's extremely cheesy, but that doesn't take my overall enjoyment of the movie. I think that the scare factor works a lot in this movie's favor. Most of the scenes that were meant to be scary actually had me on the edge of my seat. I think that the scene of the shark biting Stellan Skarsgård's character's arm off, the scene with the oven, and the finale were all really well done sequences that showcase the power that this movie had over its audience. So needless to say, I think this movie's tone worked really well. So my overall thoughts on Deep Blue Sea are as follows. It's not a great movie, but it's a damn fun one that holds up pretty well. It also helps that it's a good movie at the same time. Maybe on repeat viewings I would consider this movie great, but as of now, the score I have for Deep Blue Sea is an 8 out of 10.
That's all I really have to say. Now, if you'll excuse me, George and our new friend Kahala the dolphin have to fight off some monsters. I think I might actually take her home with me and make her a co-host just like with me and George. Anyways, that's it for this review. Next week we'll be looking at something not so great. But until then, and with that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and